Tonight, a powerful earthquake rattles British Columbia's south coast. Thousands feel the tremors and brace for aftershocks.
There was sort of a big bang, like there'd been an explosion.
Why experts are calling this earthquake unusual. And a deadly building collapse north of Toronto. Two premiers launch a fresh push to stave off Trump's punishing tariffs.
No one down here knows what he wants, and we don't know what he wants. Let's sit down and negotiate.
The allegations that are being made are false, they're fictitious, and they're fabricated.
Also, why one candidate is disqualified from the race to become prime minister days before a crucial debate. Plus, the gold and glory at the Four Nations face-off. True patriot love as Canada trumps the U.S. in overtime with political ties on thin ice.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. Canada's west coast was rocked by a significant earthquake this afternoon. The earth shook in British Columbia, with tremors felt in Vancouver, Victoria, and surrounding cities. The magnitude 4.7 quake rattling people in what some experts say is a wake-up call. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson starts us off.
The people and pet inside this home scrambled to find safety near the epicenter of the earthquake that hit BC's south coast. Millions of others may also have received a jolt.
It's an earthquake. I've never felt an earthquake like that, ever.
You can imagine a freight train going by right beside your house. That's almost what it felt like.
The quake, shortly before 1:30 p.m., was centered near the small community of Seashelt, only about 60 kilometers northwest of Vancouver, where it rattled residents of downtown high-rises.
The whole building felt like it was moving down. It felt like you were jumping on a trampoline for a second there.
No, it felt like we were on a ride.
Seismologists say this earthquake is unusual for a couple of reasons. First, it struck at a depth of only 1 kilometer, and shallow earthquakes create stronger shaking. Second, most earthquakes around here hit off the west coast in the water. This one right beneath land.
It's been a while. It's been at least a decade since we've had an earthquake of this magnitude and felt by so many people.
There have been no reports of major damage, and there was no tsunami threat. The earthquake is being seen as a wake-up call for a high-risk region that has been warned again and again to be ready for the big one.
Oh my goodness, I wish I refreshed myself on my earthquake preparedness, that's for sure. I'm thinking about where's the safe space to hide.
Aftershocks are expected for up to a week. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
A small community north of Toronto is in shock after a man died inside his family-owned business when the roof collapsed. Dozens of firefighters and emergency crews rushed to this building when its roof caved in this afternoon. The 55-year-old man was found while crews dug through heavy snow and debris. The cause of the collapse is under investigation. South of the border, the diplomatic push continued today with two premiers back in Washington, pushing back against the president's proposed tariffs. This time, they took their message directly to state governors. CTV's Judy Trin is in Washington tonight.
In just 2 weeks, these two premiers have visited Washington twice, but are unsure if their efforts will make a difference.
That's the ironic thing. No one down here knows what he wants, and we don't know what he wants. Let's sit down and negotiate. What's a win for you? Simple as that.
Last week, in a visit to the White House, all of the provincial and territorial leaders told officials they were taking the president's concerns about border security and defense seriously. Today, they delivered the same message to both Republican and Democratic governors.
What we can do is, I think, take the president at his word on the things that he's concerned about, like the border, like fentanyl, like the NATO commitment.
Despite naming a fentanyl czar and designating drug cartels as terrorist groups and reducing illegal crossings across the northern border, Donald Trump doesn't appear to be changing his mind.
I think Canada they're going to have to pay tariffs on automobiles, lumber, and oil and gas, etc.
Support for Trump's tariffs is divided among governors. Some believe it will strengthen domestic industry. Others see financial pain.
It's important to each of our national security and ultimately to our economic success. So when you look at Kentucky, we just shattered our exports record. It's about $47 billion, and about 23% of that goes to Canada.
When you're a free market commodity state like North Dakota, we like good trade agreements, but we also want to reset it and make sure the United States is being treated fairly.
The premiers expect that the Canada-US-Mexico Free Trade Agreement will have to be renegotiated before Trump is satisfied. As the 30-day pause on tariffs draws closer to an end, Canadian officials say they will be ready to retaliate. Heather.
Judy Trin in Washington for us tonight. Those tariffs may be unavoidable, at least in some form. CTV's chief political correspondent and host of Power Play, Vashi Capellos, caught up with Canada's ambassador to the U.S. What are we learning from that conversation, Vashi?
Hi, Heather. Yeah, it may feel like that countdown to the possible application of tariffs has faded a bit into the background given everything else that is going on, but it still is very much real, and efforts continue to be underway to try and secure some kind of more permanent exemption for Canadian imports. I had a chance to sit down with Canada's ambassador to the U.S., Kirsten Hillman, who is kind of leading those Team Canada efforts. She certainly has met with a number of people on the inside of Donald Trump's administration to try and ascertain whether we were getting any signals, any explicit assurances from people in and around Donald Trump that those tariffs are not coming. Here's what she said.
No, we haven't received any explicit assurances. What happens is we provide the information. We have received positive recognition of not only the efforts that we've made, but the results that are flowing from those efforts. But all of the people that are responsible for taking this information in and then briefing the president on it are not going to speak for the president.
Now, certainly if the tariffs this round at least are tied to the border, the government is making a lot of effort at strengthening the border, cracking down on cartels, a whole host of things that they can say, here, look, Donald Trump, this is what we've done. But if in fact it's about more than the border, which Donald Trump has certainly signaled it is, and it's about a wider trading relationship that he views, albeit without the facts to back it up, is imbalanced towards Canada, then we're possibly in for a much longer, protracted fight. Heather?
All right, Vashi, thank you. The threat of tariffs has some in the auto industry rethinking priorities. Stellantis is now pausing work on the retooling of a plant near Toronto set to build the next generation Jeep Compass SUV. As CTV's John Vanavalley-Rao tells us, the plant had employed roughly 3,000 people.
Production at this auto assembly plant in Brampton has been frozen for a year, while inside a $1 billion refit is taking place, aimed at building gas and electric versions of the Jeep Compass. But owner Stellantis temporarily hitting the brakes on the project, leaving workers feeling anxious.
All of this just adds to the layer of concern and uncertainty that our members and that workers everywhere are facing right now.
It all comes as U.S. President Donald Trump this week said he plans to impose auto tariffs in the 25% range. That's on top of his musings about ending EV subsidies and incentives. Stellantis says work is being paused to reassess its product strategy, citing a dynamic environment, but adding this does not change our previously announced investment plans for Brampton.
It's not great news because we need certainty, but we do know that every single car maker is rethinking the product mix now that we're in this new world.
Ontario and the federal government committed hundreds of millions to the retooling of Stellantis' plant in Brampton and one in Windsor. But with EV sales slowing and government spending on incentives running out, some think Stellantis may be looking to shuffle production.
What it looks like is that Stellantis is kind of calling a bit of an audible, and it's going to bring the gas version of that Jeep to that plant before the electric version.
As for production at that Brampton plant, it was supposed to resume later this year, but the union fears that will no longer be a possibility. John Vanavalley-Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
One of the 5 candidates vying for the Liberal leadership has been disqualified from the race just days before a pivotal debate. Former MP Ruby Dalla was kicked out in a decision made unanimously by the Liberal Leadership Committee. The party said in a statement the decision followed an extensive process and review, including interviews, questionnaires, and an opportunity for Dr. Dalla to directly address the committees. She was in breach of 10 violations of the national leadership rules, leadership vote rules, and the leadership expense rules. It comes a day after the Globe and Mail reported she was questioned about campaign finances and possible interference from India. Dalla called the decision both shocking and deeply disappointing.
No other filings have been done with Elections Canada. So for the party to say that we've been in a breach of a potential or a future Elections Canada filing is slightly fabricated, because no filing to Elections Canada for the expenses of the campaign have yet been made. I think it was an effort by the Liberal Party of Canada to ensure that I was kept off of the debate stage, that I was kept off the ballot, and that they could complete the coronation for Mark Carney to become the leader of the Liberal Party.
Dalla says her team will review the rules before deciding if they will appeal. As the next federal election approaches, more ridings are up for grabs than ever before. Leaders now looking to name candidates in more constituencies. As CTV's Rachel Aiello learned 2 of the 3 major parties still have a lot of work to do.
This is going to be an absolutely crucial election for our country.
As the race to pick the next Liberal leader gets closer to the finish line, speculation is ramping up that the winner could call a snap election soon after, to seize on the momentum the party's seeing in the polls. With 343 seats up for grabs in the next campaign, CTV News contacted the federal parties to see how many ridings have candidates selected. As of this week, the Conservatives are leading with 234. The Liberals have 147, and the NDP are close behind with 143. While recent polling shows Conservative support slipping, Pierre Poilievre, having the political wind in his sails for the last few years, has helped him recruit.
I think it's what you're seeing as a lot of people are stepping up who kind of want to be a part of that change, and they see obviously a lot of opportunity to have a seat at the table and kind of drive that.
Since Justin Trudeau triggered a leadership race, the Liberals say they've seen an uptick in interest in running for the party. But with dozens of cabinet ministers and MPs not re-offering, they've lost some senior campaigners.
Anytime you lose an MP, there's usually an incumbency benefit that comes with that. So, the fact that there's a lot of Liberal MPs who aren't running again, that will make it more challenging in those ridings.
Jagmeet Singh's team recently urged candidates in a memo to get ready for a snap vote within weeks. Despite needing to name more candidates than they currently have, the NDP's national director said every campaign there's concerns the party won't run a full slate, and in the end, they always do.
We have approved packages for many, many more ridings that we will proceed with very quickly once we know exactly when the election is going to be.
As for the Greens, the party is still vetting its nominees. But leader Elizabeth May said this week she's not nervous about running candidates in all ridings.
We will have a full slate by the writ drop.
It's not just needing to name candidates, but ensuring you have enough time to properly vet them. And so insiders told me all parties likely have a spreadsheet of prospective nominees that they could tap in a pinch, on top of rosters of star candidates who may be waiting until closer to the election being called to confirm their bids. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
A new setback for the fragile ceasefire in the Middle East after Hamas returned the wrong body back to Israel.
The body that Hamas falsely claimed was Shiri was not hers and not of any other hostage. Instead, Hamas sent over the body of an anonymous woman.
The body of Shiri Bibas was supposed to be handed over along with the remains of her 2 children, but Israel says forensic testing shows the body returned yesterday was a woman from Gaza. Hamas says it's investigating what happened and has named 6 living hostages to be released on Saturday.
I've had very good talks with Putin, and I've had not such good talks with Ukraine. They don't have any cards, but they play it tough.
Donald Trump appeared to criticize Ukraine's leadership again today, saying the U.S. will not let the war continue. While in Kyiv, Ukraine's Air Force says it shot down 87 Russian drones in an overnight attack. In New York today, accused killer Luigi Mangione appeared in court for the first time since his arraignment. The 26-year-old is accused of fatally gunning down a U.S. health insurance executive in December. At the hearing, Mangione's lawyer told the judge he was illegally searched during his arrest and that she will seek to exclude that evidence from trial. Well, Team Canada conquering the U.S. in the first ever four nations face-off fueled a new wave of patriotism in this country. CTV's Jeremy Sharon on what the win represents both on and off the ice.
Sends it around. Marner waiting. Connor McDavid scores! Connor McDavid for Canada! A golden goal from Canada's Connor McDavid with the weight of a nation on his shoulders.
That means the world. Obviously, you can see how happy our group is. It means a lot to us, too.
A win for Canada against the U.S. that comes in the face of political and economic attacks from President Donald Trump.
I just want to wish you a lot of luck.
Who called the American team ahead of the game, offering his support.
This one was different. This wasn't a win for themselves. This was a win for 40+ million people. But Canada needed a win. And the players bared that on their shoulders.
A win celebrated by fans across the country.
They were always going to get it done. I had no doubt in my mind.
Including Canada's Prime Minister, who took to social media after the game to share a pointed message. You can't take our country, and you can't take our game.
The way the government's going right now, what's going on? Absolutely, we needed to win that.
It was clearly more than just a game, and that was obvious before it even started. With a small but deliberate change to the Canadian anthem by Winnipeg's Chantal Kreviatsik, she says meant to send a message to Trump about his threat to make Canada the 51st state. It was a tournament that many first thought wouldn't hold much weight.
It was just a replacement for the All-Star game, this funky little four-team tournament. It wasn't the Olympics, and yet by the end, it felt like the Olympics.
A tournament and a game that will be long remembered. Jeremy Sherrill, CTV News.
Coming up.
I think it's terrible. I think that they could be doing a much better job.
Frustration over slow snow removal following major storms. A 13-year-old girl from a Montreal suburb has died days after it's believed she was buried in a collapsed snow tunnel. The girl was rushed to hospital after she was found unconscious outside her home on Tuesday and has now died from her injuries. It happened after the area received more than 70 centimeters of snow in just 4 days. This tragedy led the city to issue a warning about playing in snow forts and tunnels. Toronto was also hit by massive back-to-back storms similar to large parts of the country this month. People in the city are still having a hard time getting around. CTV's Beth McDonnell now on the piles of snow and mounting frustration.
In Toronto's East End, there are vehicles still covered in snow. Piles of snow higher than cars.
I think it's terrible. I think that they could be doing a much better job. I bet you there's a ton of senior citizens or people with disabilities that are stuck in their apartments and homes on these side streets are ridiculous.
It's been more than a week since the city's first big storm this month and 5 days since the second. And while the city is making progress clearing snow, some feel there is room for improvement.
It impacts all the local small businesses because there's going to be less foot traffic, and also the people can't even park.
Some sidewalks are pretty clear before all of a sudden you hit a mound of snow. And so the balancing act to get by and the shoveling continues.
Yeah, it's bad. Getting to school, horrible. You just look over there, you have to crawl over it. It's insane.
Crews with blowers and bobcats are working to remove snow, dispatched to strategic locations and loading it onto dump trucks. From there, the snow is hauled away and discarded in a yard.
Well, they're working at it. They're working hard. I don't want to give a grade yet. You know, you get a report card at the end of the term, no?
City officials say crews are out 24/7, but it could take 3 weeks to finish the job. Beth McDonnell, CTV News, Toronto.
Still ahead, showing off skills. What it takes to be part of a real-life Paw Patrol. A Japanese airline is introducing power nap chairs for its ground crews in an effort to improve safety. All Nippon Airways says it's the first company in the aviation industry to offer these chairs to mechanics and technicians. The company is encouraging them to take short naps during breaks to help prevent mental fatigue. An avalanche rescue dog in BC is showing off what it takes to be part of a real-life Paw Patrol. 3-year-old Ronnie recently received her certification and hit the slopes with a 360 action camera along with her trusted handler Cedric. The rescue pup's favorite part of her shift at Mount Washington Alpine Resort is sweeping the hills at the end of a sunny day. Still ahead, basking in the afterglow of an epic win. How Canada's hockey-crazed fan base is celebrating from coast to coast. Canada's frenzied fan base wasn't about to miss the chance to put their amped-up patriotism on full display. We leave you tonight with some of the best sights and sounds from a victory fans will never forget. Good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.
It was stressful, but if you're a Canadian boy, you're always going to believe in this team. They were always going to get it done. I had no doubt in my mind.
I think it brings Canada together, especially the time we need it.
Oh my God, did I jump out of my seat like crazy. Me and my son were just cheering like mad in the garage.
Good to see that they played with that pressure and they really put the flag first kind of a deal. So, yeah, it was a really good game. I enjoyed it, yeah.
I was so happy for Canada. I was proud of the boys. I thought they won with humility. I thought they were classy. I enjoyed everything about the game. It was great.
It was pretty exciting. It was nice to see Marner get, a primary assist on the final goal. No, it was pretty cool to see.
I was so happy to see that right at the end. Oh, I was killing myself. It was great.
Feels really proud to see the victory, especially came in overtime. So. And it was against USA, so it was great to see the bitter rivals coming down, and especially with all the politics things going away. And it was just a sweet victory in the end.
It was easy to get behind Canada living here, and obviously with everything happening with the US, it was good to get one over them.
Go Canada, go! We did it! We did it! We did it!
Hasn't sounded much better than that, has it?